Hi, and welcome to Memoirs from Gaia. This is our first episode, and I'm lucky to have with me two guests from Pakistan, Adil and Safi. It's great to have you. So let's just dive right in. Why don't you start by telling me a little bit about yourselves and about your experiences?
You want to start? You go ahead. So, I'm Syed Safiullah Shah, but you can just call me Syed, and I'm a computer science student at NIST. It's a university in Islamabad, the capital of Pakistan. So, we both are Millennium Fellows for the class of 22, working on different projects. But the fellowship was impacted when the floods happened in 2022. So different people have different projects for the Millennium Fellowship, but this all diverted towards attention towards the floods that happened. So we'll be talking more about that today. And now Adil can introduce himself.
So I'm Tariq, the same university, National University of Science and Technology from Pakistan. And I'm also the part of the Millennium Fellowship. And the thing that Safi mentioned was the projects. Our projects are essentially based on SDG 1, 4, and 8, is also revolving somewhat around that. But today we are going to speak about the climate change, because in the recent times, like in the recent 3 to 4 months, we have seen tremendously people being devastated by floods. And this scale of devastation has not been seen in a decade, at least in Pakistan. So this affected the projects we were doing. So we had to channel our donations from our project towards those sites. We're going to be mentioning all this in the time to come. No worries.
Yeah, wow. I mean, great work. And it sounds like an important time to be doing this work. Why don't you start off by telling me a little bit about how your projects were affected, when that happened, why it happened.
So let me just establish a timeline for what's been happening in Pakistan for the last few months. So it all started with the monsoon rains in July. And in just a couple of weeks, we saw 4, 5 to 7 times more average rain than average previous data than we saw in the whole monsoon. So imagine rain in 2 weeks that you are expecting for the whole season. So this caused the dams to overflow. Roads, there were flash floods, and there was small levels of devastation here and there. But this escalated extremely quickly, and all emerged into in the end, almost 1/3 of Pakistan was underwater. This was the extent of the devastation. And it was all extremely quick and unexpected, and there were no government measures or private measures, and it was extremely unexpected, as I reiterated. And the amount of energy, because it wasn't expected, I'm sorry, I'm buffering. So because it wasn't expected, so the amount of devastation that we had and then damage to loss of lives and loss of infrastructure and other things, it was insanely huge. How do you wanna?
Yeah, if I may be adding to this, the thing is that the rain, monsoon is a thing in India and Pakistan. We are accustomed to it. We take measures, we build dams, we do things, but they are not on such a large scale that they can countermeasure for the rain that happened this time. Monsoon this year, it was so tremendously huge that we had enough rain that would span over 2 months, spanning in 2 weeks. So this created so much rush of water that all the rivers, all the canals, everything was over-flooded. And all the water that came into the homes, that destroyed roads, that destroyed livestock, lives, everything was affected. So the people that were working in the cities that were not affected, I was working with the children. I was working against child labor. But I had to shift my attention from that towards this. We channeled all our funds, all our efforts towards this. I personally went to, there is a district, Kohat, in a province, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa of Pakistan. So I had to go there and take part in some relief efforts. So we did the same things. So essentially all the Millennium Fellows in Pakistan, they had to shift their attention from their own projects towards this.
One thing I want to add is that let me give you a geography lesson also. So like there are 4 provinces in Pakistan, and the ones are namely Balochistan and Sindh. These are like the least developed areas, right?
Right.
So these areas were the most affected. So number one, they were least developed. They already had lack of funds, lack of infrastructure, and second, they were the most affected. So because of that, it quadruple, double the damage that was expected.
Yeah, I
And
mean,
because no countermeasures for that.
yeah, no, I mean, I think that's usually what we see happen, right? We see the countries, the peoples, the ones most vulnerable to climate changes and climate crises are the ones most affected by them, and that's part of what makes the emergency that we're seeing so urgent, is that poor people are the ones getting even poorer. So yeah, you mentioned a little bit about the different provinces in Pakistan and how some were more affected than others. Can you tell me where you guys are from, and then how your region was affected, or a neighboring region, and how you sort of felt that up close?
Okay. So we both are from Punjab, and it is next to the capital.
Okay.
So this area where we are sitting right now, this was not affected. So there were rains, but there was no flood or anything like this. It affected very minutely, like there was a thunderstorm and wind, strong winds, but it did not like damage like floods or anything like that. So if we move towards our surrounding areas, the Punjab is divided into two main parts, that is South Punjab and North Punjab. So in South Punjab, there was a lot of floods because that is essentially agricultural land. There are rivers, there are canals, and things like that. So all the water that was coming in through the monsoon rain, that channeled to all the rivers, and all the agricultural lands, all the livestock, all the people that live in the rural areas, they were affected severely. If I move a bit further, we have KPK, Khyber Pakhtunkhwa, another province, and in that also because there was a whole river that was flowing from up of Pakistan towards the dam, like it flows to the sea. So in its whole channel, in its whole path, all the areas that it went through, it affected all those. That includes all the 4 provinces.
Right.
So another thing I want to add is that we are extremely lucky to be in Islamabad, like capital. Yes, there were rains, but it wasn't affected. There wasn't any damage. But if you move a bit further, like to north of Pakistan, just an hour, 1 hour, 2 hour drive away, there are like a lot of mountainous areas, right?
Himalayas.
Like you might have heard about the Himalayas and other mountains. So they are kind of like tourist spots. So like
Right.
to give you a picture, there's a river flowing in between, and there are hotels and tourist places and other picnic spots like on the sides.
Mm-hmm.
So the flash flood, what happened during the flash floods was that the rivers, they completely overflowed, right? And the impact was so strong that they took down the whole 8-story, 10-story hotels down the river with them.
Wow.
It was the impact. And the bridges and the roads, they were just like, it's like moving something. So roads and the bridges, they were seeing something so minute compared to what was coming. And like people only have to run for their lives without care, leaving all their belongings behind. So like imagine you're sleeping in a house right now, and the next day you have nothing. This was the impact, and it was extremely sudden.
Yeah, I mean, it sounds devastating, and as far as I've been able to tell, these floods have also caused sort of, food insecurity and water insecurity and energy insecurity and all these other effects that potentially will have much more long-term effect on Pakistan and on the Pakistani people and economy. And how do you see these incidents sort of within a bigger picture for Pakistan, and within development and within all those things that Pakistan might otherwise be seeking, but now are putting on the back end to fight against these floods?
Okay, so I think so. I should give a few figures to like In Pakistan, the people that were affected were 33 million.
Wow.
So 33 million people affected, 1,700 were dead, and 10 million children were affected. So you can imagine everything.
That's like greater than the entire population of United Kingdom and like other countries.
So that's the scale of this.
I'm from Norway. We're 5 million people, so you can imagine 33 million people is a lot.
It's a lot.
Yes.
And the fact that it hasn't been in the mainstream media for that long. I think yes, there were headlines, but there's no one talking about it. That's I think an extremely big problem.
Yes. So apart from people, I would say the livestock, the main essential thing that Pakistan is being driven by, that is agriculture and livestock. So about 1.1 million of the livestock was affected as well. If I talk about villages and the infrastructure, so there were
440, I guess.
Yeah, 440 villages and
13,000 kilometers of roads.
Yes.
Infrastructure, houses, and like more than 400 bridges that were damaged or completely broken.
Destroyed. These things were destroyed. So we lack right now is intellectual engineering capabilities. We lack the personnel to repair all this in a fast-paced manner. We lack the funds to do so because we are a developing country. We need those funds. But we were trying to do was channel our funds from this, what we were doing towards that side. So this entirely affected all the things that were happening in these areas, and all the attention got diverted to that area. So this in a whole affected the whole country. Not a single segment of the country was left unaffected by this.
Right. Have you seen sort of the whole country being unified around this? Has there been internal solidarity and yes?
Absolutely. Like people from each and every segment of the society, each and every area of Pakistan, they tried to take part in those relief efforts that were being done in those areas that were affected. If I give you the example of where I am right now, people and different students, they started their own NGOs, they started their own relief efforts, collecting funds from the people, going door to door. They collected the funds, they bought the things that were needed, like tents, shelters, food, items, water, medicines, everything like this, clothes. They bought this, they took those things, they went to those areas themselves. The biggest thing, they did not care about themselves or anything. Like they were so motivated towards helping the people. They got into their cars, they bought the things, they went to those areas. So this is the unity that people show.
Yeah, at least that's some light in sort of the darkness of all of this. But just going back a little bit, how are things right now? How do we stand right now? What's the situation?
So let me tell you about something. So after like 33 million, we give them figure of 33 million that people that were displaced, right?
Mm-hmm.
So there's a need for immediate action in regards to their shelter, food, and there were growing concerns of like waterborne diseases and some other things like that, malnutrition. So the immediate response was to like give them shelter, provide adequate food items, medicine, and these things, right?
Mm-hmm.
So now it's like almost a month has been passed. So Pakistan like had a goal for like $800 or $900 million to give them basic necessary immediate attention.
Mm-hmm.
But to rehabilitate 33 million people, it will take a lot of time and a lot of effort. I think if I'm not wrong, there was a figure by United Nations like that Pakistan will need to spend this decade, almost the rest of these 8 years, to try to rehabilitate the 33 million people displaced.
Mm.
So it will take time, to say the least, and we need help.
Wow,
Yeah.
Pakistan alone cannot do that.
The biggest thing right now is that we as a country, we are doing a lot. But right now we have a lot on our plate. We have to deal with a lot of things. So as Safi mentioned that this flood thing has been pushed to the backstage. This has been pushed to the back pages of the newspaper. Like what we need right now is international attention on this, because the floods, they were covered. But what about the after effects of the floods? People have forgotten this. They need to be made aware that there are people that are dying of the diseases that have occurred after the flood. There is dengue fever. There are various diseases like malaria. People are dying of malnutrition, to say the least. People die in childbirth. So this affects the people really greatly. So what we need is international attention on this. We need the governments all around the world to come on board and help Pakistan and help the people on ground. Like, we need engineers. We need more than funds. I think so. We need people who can rebuild Pakistan.
Well, it's a good thing you're studying engineering and can be part of that effort in the future. But yeah, I mean, is there this sense in Pakistan that you feel sort of forgotten by the international community, and that in the immediate aftermath of the floods there were sort of big headlines and perhaps promises of aid and assistance, and then as you continue to live with these effects, that quite frankly isn't the cause of Pakistan. Pakistan is not a major contributor or emitter to global warming. Do you feel a sense of sort of that you need more from the international community?
I will add something here. The people who are affected by this, I'm pretty much sure that there is such lack of education there that they would not even know what is global warming.
Right.
So this is the ground reality, that the people being affected, they are essentially the most vulnerable people. So what we need right now is that Pakistan does not even emit more than 1% of the entire global gas emissions, greenhouse gases.
Right.
So what the issue over here is that the countries that are emitting so much greenhouse gases, and we are at the receiving end of all these effects, what we need is a bit of like humanly spirit from them. Like, we need their help, essentially. Like,
right.
If you come on to the ground, if you see the people, how they interact, like, if you give one bottle to a child and you see him or her smiling now, so that makes your heart melt. So I think so that people should come to Pakistan. They should visit Pakistan. They should see what Pakistan needs.
I think there was also increased attention, right? I remember like Angelina Jolie and visited Pakistan, and the UN ambassador chairman Antonio. He also went visit Pakistan, and he said that he has never seen the impact of devastation before after coming to Pakistan. And I think, yes, we also need to stress that international community needs to contribute more and pay attention and the due regard to climate change. Like, it was a thing for the future, but now it is already here.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, Pakistan is a country, I think, that is especially sort of placed to be affected. I think what built up to this...
Pakistan, such that it directly impacts in the form of like earthquakes and floods, flash floods, and such areas.
Right.
And there's a lot of glaciers, right? So the global warming and the gases, they directly contribute to the melting of these glaciers, which affects the cities and the districts and the other areas that are downhill. So like, they are already vulnerable, I can say, and they are also on the receiving end of the most of the devastation.
Right, because as far as I've sort of understood is that on the one hand you have these massive floods and destructive floods, but on the other you also have drought and sort of heat in the summer that melts these glaciers and causes this. And so you have this paradox where you've either too much water or too little of it. And so, there's a lot of efforts that need to be taken to adapt, I guess, rather than to just mitigate, like we're currently seeing, for these changes, really, and they're hard to predict.
Like, I would tell you something about this flood that happened. Like, it is 1 in 1,000 years event that floods of this scale happen after heat waves. So what you said right now, this has happened in Pakistan. Like, if you go towards the deserts, the third desert or places like that, so there are people dying of no rain. If you come to the other end, there are people dying of excessive rains.
Right.
So the problem there is that we lack the infrastructure to store that water that is being channeled into the rivers, to stop that water. Like, there are not enough dams in Pakistan. That is one of the main reasons that floods affect us so much.
Are you seeing internal efforts to improve this infrastructure and to improve your climate resistance?
Yeah, I think so. There are efforts, but they are very minimal right now.
Yes, there are efforts, but Pakistan is essentially a financially struggling country. Like, it has an extremely weak economy.
Right.
So climate changes, for example, let me give you an example. If you have a choice to put food on your table or build a dam, you will put food on your table, right?
Yeah.
So this is I think, dilemma that Pakistan and its government is facing. Although there are individual efforts, there are many non-government organizations working, but the extent of these efforts is like a drop in the ocean. And although I believe individuals can lead a collective change, there is a need for international community and other countries to contribute as well and pay due attention.
Exactly. Here, I would like to mention that Pakistan is not the only country that is being affected. There are many countries in Africa and other parts of Asia as well that are being affected. So people need to channel their attention towards these countries as well.
Yeah, I mean, this is sort of a broader look at things, but you can see now with the war in Ukraine and perhaps, you know, the rest of the world or parts of Europe, at least, sort of returning and moving away from climate action towards non-renewables because of energy insecurity, etc. And you do see that the climate crisis, as you rightly pointed out, is an emergency of the present too, and something that we need to work on in the present as well. And so it is this constant dilemma, right? Do you ensure that people have enough electricity and energy, or do you also, but that in turn might affect other people in the world with food insecurity and all these other things. So I think what we have to realize is that it's all interconnected, and that in this sort of globalized world, what one state does in one part of the world will affect what another state is experiencing in another. And so it's really to have that collective, and really it just shows solidarity, I think, towards the international community and recognizing that. Moving us just a little bit further, what are you doing right now in this moment? Are you doing anything to related to this, or are you sort of now on the path of trying to, I don't know, study and move on?
Actually, we're trying to do both.
Right.
Like what you said, to move on, it needs a lot of effort to move on from this flood. And we are trying our level best emotionally and both physically do this, but it takes effort. But what we are doing right now is each and every person, I think. So there are people who have forgotten this, no doubt about that, but there are a lot of people who are still working for this. But the ratio of those people is very less as compared to the whole community. So
Right.
people, as we both, we are trying to channel our funds towards that, but we have to channel our funds towards these projects as well. So there is a boundary now, what we have to do. This is the thing that I was mentioning, that things that have been affected by the floods, now they're affecting the whole country. Like, I was to channel my funds to this, now half of my funds have been channeled to that. This is happening right now as well, but all of my funds are now not being channeled to the floods, because I have to look after these people as well. So these are the things that are happening.
Do you feel like youth plays a big role in this effort? Is there a lot of youth engagement and involvement?
Yeah, definitely. So most of these donation campaigns, these were primarily run by students, and distribution efforts were also contributed by a lot of students. Like, in our university, we had our own donation campaign type of thing, and it's still continuing. But there hasn't been a lot of improved efforts to do so. Like I already said, a lot of people are displaced, right? And there is continued and increasingly more efforts required to rehabilitate them. And although donations are a good way of helping them, these are not sustainable, definitely not. And in the rehabilitation process that is to be spanned out for the next 7-8 years to rehabilitate and build infrastructure that was broken and everything. there needs to be attention from not only our government, which is trying its best, already struggling, but trying its best, but there is increasingly more need for Western and like the global climate countries, climate conscious countries, they need to pay their attention towards Asia, towards Pakistan. So let's suppose today Pakistan was affected, tomorrow maybe our neighbors, maybe Africa. And there's no efforts to prevent that.
People are unaware of this. That is the whole dilemma, the whole paradoxical theory behind this, that people do not know what is going to happen to them. There are efforts being done in Pakistan, like we are trying to move towards renewable, sustainable energy resources, but we are moving towards EVs. But that will not happen very quickly. We have other issues to look after. The most important is for our people to survive healthy, happy. That is the main thing. That is happening around the world. But the thing is that the things that are happening in Pakistan, they are affecting us very much.
Yeah, wow. I mean, it's very powerful to hear you talk about this as having sort of experienced this on the ground rather than having a expert or something talk about it more broadly. If there is, just sort of wrapping up, are there anything else you'd like our listeners to take away and to know about what's happening in Pakistan?
So, one thing for certain is that climate change is here. It's not a thing for the future, it's in the present, right? So, the next step is we can either ignore it since it's already affecting developing countries, or we can take countermeasures for it, right? So, I just read the other day that the Climate Protection Fund for the United Nations is like I think a goal of $10 billion, and it's still not fulfilled.
Right.
So, countries with trillions of dollars of budget cannot contribute. Compared to their budget, they can't contribute a small amount to climate protection. So this needs to change essentially, and more efforts. I think developing countries also need to contribute more. It's not like our government is doing its best. It can do more to protect its people. But as I said, Pakistan is a struggling country financially, not economically, right? And its geography is extremely diverse and extremely vulnerable to climate change. So as Adil mentioned, we have snowy mountains on one side and deserts on the other. So our geography is a bit too complex for us alone to handle, right? And we are vulnerable to climate change. Pakistan is, I think, in the top 10 most vulnerable countries to climate change. So Pakistan needs help, that's for certain. Pakistan needs funds. Pakistan needs intellectual help. Pakistan needs engineers. Pakistan needs doctors to build back the infrastructure, to build back schools, build back hospitals, and to just simply rehabilitate the people that were displaced. 33 million is a lot of people, and it will take time and continuous effort.
So if I may add to this, we just need you people, to every person who is listening, just do something, as little as you can, something for the climate change. Because each person, if you are doing something for your own country, it is going to affect us. Take countermeasures on your own end, and it will affect us. And we are going to be happy by that. The least you people can do to every person who is hearing, and just do this, and in the next few years, we might not be having this
conversation again.
A strong call to action there. I think that's a great note to end on. I just want to thank you so very much for coming and speaking about your experiences and your fantastic efforts to help mitigate the situation. So thank you.
Thank you for having us.